It seems that prologues were more common in the books I read growing up than they are now. In fact, a lot of authors nowadays avoid them because they believe people don't read them. A prologue can be done well though, and I'm going to share my thoughts on how, using three main examples from the Avatar The Last Airbender franchise. Okay, so what even is a prologue? Even though it's most often used for written works, it can apply to other kinds of fictional works too, like plays or movies. Grammarly defines it as a separate introductory section of a literary work that comes before the main narrative. It sets the stage for the story or provides background information about the characters, setting, or events. It goes on to say that a prologue can set the stage for the story, introduce themes, and provide essential context. We'll get back to that. If you've watched the new live action remake of Avatar The Last Airbender, one of the first things you'll notice is that the Airbender genocide is added to the first episode. This is one form a prologue can take, a time jump. While the animated series starts with Aang already frozen in ice and then waking up, the live action series decides to show the events leading up to him getting frozen. There are advantages to each approach. With a more chronological approach, the audience goes into the main body of the story already knowing what has happened before. But that isn't always a good thing. In the live action version, we already know going in that the air nomads have been attacked and wiped out. So the impact is less when Aang himself finds out. We don't get to discover with the characters, feel their emotions as they work through it. Don't get me wrong, this can be done well. Dramatic irony is a useful literary device too, after all. But I would say it's more effective at building tension over time until it all hits the fan. In the live action series, we don't get the reveal of Aang's shame at running away, which is hinted at for many episodes in the animated series.
Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar? Because I never wanted to be.
So personally, I'd say the live action remake dropped the ball with this. By adding the prologue, they robbed themselves of the opportunity to let us discover what happened. Making it something discovered over time allows the writer to share it at specific times that thematically fit the story. For example, by revealing Aang's backstory during the storm, which is episode 12, they were able to craft an episode that uses the storm motif not only as a callback to Aang's running away, but to show some parallels between Aang and Zuko. Both are exiles in a way, both have anger issues inside them, and both have shame. We don't get this thematic richness in the live-action series. Another Avatar example is the Rise of Koshi novel. The first chapter takes place 9 years before the main body of the story. The author, FCE, does not call it a prologue, but it most certainly is. Remember I said that some authors avoid adding prologues? Well, some get around that by just keeping their prologues as first chapters, and this seems to be what Yi did. For me, Yi's choice is an example of the possible negatives of a prologue. The time skip was like a whiplash to me. It felt unnecessary and did not reveal anything that could not have been revealed later on. The prologue raises a question that I can't remember being answered in the novel. Why was it so hard to identify the Avatar? Remember that a prologue is supposed to set the tone or theme, and to have this question raised, never to be answered, is a weakness in writing. As an aside, Michael Dante DiMartino kind of worsens all this by writing in his foreword that Koshi is not believed to be the Avatar at the start of the book, which completely threw off a potential shocking reveal in the main body of the book. The second chapter starts from Koshi's perspective. Fans of the show know that she is the Avatar, and the chapter makes it clear that she lives in the Avatar's estate. Jumping into this second chapter without a prologue would have given Yi the opportunity to shock the reader with the knowledge of Koshi not having been identified as the Avatar and raise questions as to what happened. That would have been more compelling to me. So far it might seem like I'm against the idea of prologues, but I can point to good ones. Avatar The Last Airbender does start with a type of prologue, one that is typically limited to TV and film, specifically fantasy media.
These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect
Egyptian
little girl.
kings played a game of great and terrible power.
Only the 6 primal sources of magic.
And I would never allow him to be released, for he would arise a
My
wolf.
grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, a time of peace.
Katara's monologue at the start not only explains the setting that this is a world centered around 4 elements, but it also tells us the importance of the Avatar, that he is missing, and that Katara herself is a hopeful character. It doesn't over-explain the world though, so we get the chance to discover more as we go along. And it also provides us with a theme, though a little heavy-handedly, that of remaining hopeful amidst the suffering and turmoil of war. I wish I could point to an example of a good book prologue, but I can't remember any right now. But I can point to a film, 2018's Black Panther. This one actually has 2 prologues. It starts with a young Eric talking to his father. Like the Avatar monologue, it gives us a well-needed understanding of the history of this world and how it works. But it also raises an important question.
And we still hide, Baba?
Yes.
Why?
Why indeed? This is a question that we see T'Challa struggle with throughout the movie. In other words, it shows us the theme of the film. Prologue number 2 is when Prince Njobu is revealed to have betrayed Wakanda, but does not reveal why he does. The clever thing about this prologue is that it also introduces his son, Njadaka, aka Eric Killmonger, without the viewer even knowing it. This scene, while important, is just a glimpse of what has led Eric down the path of vengeance. To me, that is what makes a good prologue. Hint at what is to come, raise questions, and make sure you answer them within the main body of the text. If your prologue does not do that, then consider whether you need that prologue at all, or whether it would be more impactful to reveal the events or information later on. Do you know any good examples of prologues? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, let's learn, let's grow, let's write.